Hello, welcome to Math with Mr. Dobrescu, to the rescue. Today we are going to add and subtract numbers in scientific notation. So we are going to add numbers in scientific notation, and we want to make sure that the answer, it is also written in scientific notation. Take a look at this example, our first example. Here we have 4.6 times 10 to the power of 3 in a parenthesis plus 8.72 times 10 to the power of 3 in another parenthesis. How can we add these numbers? If we look at this example here, we notice that both parentheses contain 10 to the power of 3, which means that 10 to the power of 3 is a factor. So we can factor 10 to the power of 3 from both of these parentheses by using the reverse of the distributive property. Let me show you what it means. It means that we can factor 10 to the power of 3. So we are going to have something in a parenthesis times 10 to the power of 3. And that thing in a parenthesis should be 4.6 plus 8.72. So let's add 4.6 plus 8.72 times 10 to the power of 3. So we use the reverse of the distributive property, which means if we go back and if we multiply 10 to the power of 3 times 8.72, we get this quantity. And if we multiply 10 to the power of 3 times 4.6, we get this quantity, which means we get back the initial expression. But by using the reverse property of the distributive property, we got back to this comprised version. And now we can clearly see that we can add 4.6 plus 8.72 because both of these decimal numbers are inside of the parenthesis, and we can combine them together. Let's add them together. So we have 8.72 plus 4.6. And remember, every time we add decimals, numbers that have decimals, it's a requirement. We need to line up the decimal places and bring down the decimal place right away. And remember, if we do not have a 0, here we can add the 0 for a placeholder. Okay? And let's add the numbers. 0 plus 2 becomes 2. 6 plus 7 becomes 13. 3 carry the 1. 8 plus 1, 9, plus 4, 13. So we get 13.32. So both of these numbers become 13.32 and then times 10 to the power of 3. And I have a question for you. Are we done? And the answer is not yet, because the decimal point is placed after the second digit. And remember, numbers written in scientific notation should have the decimal point placed between the first and the second digit. So we have to move the decimal point to the left one place. But because we moved the decimal point to the left one place, we have to add a 1 to the exponent. Now instead of having 10 to the power of 3, we are going to have 10 to the power of 4. So this becomes 1.332 times 10 to the power of 4. And now this is our final answer because the decimal point is placed between the first and the second digit. And this is how we do it. This example was quite easy because the exponents were the same. We had 10 to the 3 into the first parenthesis and 10 to the third power into the second parenthesis, and we could use right away the reverse of the distributive property and get to the answer. But let's take a look at example 2. In example 2 here, we have 3.5 times 10 to the negative 2 in a parenthesis minus 6.6 times 10 to the negative 3 in this case. And we see that 10 to the negative 2 is not the same thing as 10 to the negative 3. And here we have to do something. We have to convert this one, 6.6 times 10 to the negative 3. We're trying to make it the same as 3.5 times 10 to the negative 2. And please write down some steps. Okay? So the step would be to rewrite 6.6 times 10 to the negative 3 so that it has the same power of 10 as 3.5 times 10 to the negative 2. How can we make this similar to this? And remember, if we move this decimal point to the left one place, in the previous lesson I showed you how to do, move. Remember I told you if we move the decimal to the left one place, this exponent increases or is a positive. The exponent is going to become positive. But because we moved to only one place, we need to add a 1 to the negative 3. A positive 1 to the negative 3 because we moved the decimal place to the left one place. And that number, instead of 6.6, now becomes, the decimal point is here now, this becomes 0.66, right? We can add a 0 here now. Times 10, and negative 3 plus 1 becomes negative 2. Okay? Now this 10 to the negative 3 becomes 10 to the negative 2 because we moved the decimal to the left one place. And now we have this. And we can clearly see that 10 to the negative 2 matches 10 to the negative 2 at the top. And now we can factor 10 to the negative 2 and use the reverse of the distributive property. The first parenthesis stayed the same. We didn't do anything to the first one. So let's rewrite it. 3.5 times 10 to the negative 2. Now we have a minus instead. Minus. And that parenthesis become this parenthesis now. So we have 0.66 times 10 to the negative 2. And now we can see that 10 to the negative 2 is the same in both parentheses. And we can factor 10 to the negative 2. 10 to the negative 2, we can factor it out. And now, inside of the parenthesis, we have 3.5 minus 0.66. Let's do this operation and then get the final answer. So we have 3.5 minus 0.66. And remember, in this case, we need to add the placeholder, the 0, right there. And bring down the decimal point right away. And let's do the subtraction. Can we take away 6 from 0? No. We need to borrow from the 5. Make 5 a 4, make 0 a 10. Now, 10 minus 6 becomes 4. Can we take away 6 from 4? No. We need to borrow from the 3. Make 3 a 2 and make 4 a 14. And let's subtract. Now, 14 minus 6 becomes 8. And 2 minus 0 becomes 2. And that becomes 2.84. So, after we subtract those two numbers, we get 2.84 times 10 to the negative 2. And this is our final answer. Okay? Remember, one more time, if the exponents are different, we need to change one of these exponents to make it similar to the other one. In this case, we changed this one, 6.6 times 10 to the negative 3, by moving the decimal to the left one place and adding 1 for the exponent And then we use the reverse of the distributive property. We got to this expression. And finally, after we subtract the decimals, our final answer is 2.84 times 10 to the negative 2. I hope after these examples, you are clear and you know how to add and how to subtract numbers in scientific notation. Thank you all so much for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. All the best to you.